Welcome to the Share Chair Podcast, where we tell each other's stories and learn from listening.
Our first episode at Loyola University.
Yeah.
So here we have Adam Buller. Adam Buller.
Whatever you want, I'll answer.
Adam Buller, one of the undergrad admissions counselors for Loyola University. How many are there?
In total, there's 20, different positions, but probably about 20 counselors in the office. We have a couple people that one lives in California, one lives in Texas, who recruit kind of that region.
Oh, that's so cool.
And then one who lives in Rome, who recruits we have a Rome Start program.
How long have you worked at Loyola?
This is going into my 8th year here.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it is weird to think about, I graduated from Loyola in 2009.
Oh, okay.
So, I've been here almost twice as long as I was here as a student, and it feels like the time that I was a student here was much longer than the time that I've been here since then.
Mm-hmm. Where did you go to high school before you came to Loyola?
East Grand Rapids High School.
No way!
Yeah, do you know East Grand Rapids High School?
Yes!
Yes!
I'm from Spring Lake, Michigan.
I just didn't know, if I didn't know Spring Lake before I started working with, I had a friend whose grandparents lived in Spring Lake, but East Grand Rapids is small enough, but it is very, very, very similar to Spring Lake in terms of, community.
For sure.
And just kind of that identity too. So I went to East Grand Rapids High School in the 616 area code for a long, long time, and then I sold my soul for a 312 Chicago area code, which is one of the hardest things, because that 616 was so tied to my identity as a West Michigan person.
How did you know that you wanted to go to Loyola all the way from 616?
From way back when, the G-Rap. So I started looking at colleges. I was late. I'd gone on trips with both my sisters when they were doing their college visits. So, both my sisters are 2 years. One's 2 years older than me, one's 4 years older than me. So it's spaced out. So I'd seen a lot of schools. But I didn't start mine, and I think I just didn't know really what I wanted. I'm pretty easygoing. When you grow up with two older sisters, you just learn to roll with the punches. So you're just whatever, it's gonna work for me. So I was looking at schools, probably starting in the beginning of senior year.
Okay.
And I came to Chicago to look at University of Chicago, which I was that's where Indiana Jones went. I was really and then when you get on campus, it's all these Gothic architecture and tweed jackets, and it's just very classic romantic academic.
Yeah.
And I was interested in physics, and so then but my mom had seen Loyola, and she was like, I really want you to see this. If you're going to be in Chicago, you're going to have plenty of time. You can make it just the second part of the trip. So it was more of an afterthought here when I was looking at, the backdrop. And then Chicago was so much more appealing.
Yeah,
in my
can't really defeat Chicago.
Yeah, I know. You can't. Yeah. And so, having gone to such a small town and being in a suburban area that's known as, the bubble.
Yeah.
That, I really wanted access to different experiences and opportunities. And it was really important for me. I never applied to Michigan or Michigan State. I wanted to kind of go somewhere where I didn't know people. And, I had a great high school experience. But, in that I was doing theater, I had started doing band. I was getting into all these things that were really exciting that a lot of my friends weren't doing at that point. And so
so you wanted new friends, new experience.
And that was such a fun thing of learning more about yourself and meeting tons of different types of people as a result of going through that Loyola in Chicago was really, really attractive because I wanted to have that. I wanted to open up and not have these external pressures of being you don't play sports, and be don't tell me what to do. Or you're not a person that likes theater, all these things. So I just like going to a place where I could start figuring out for myself without having to worry about that external pressure.
Yeah. What was the biggest transition then from, you said, you're where you come from, the bubble, sort of 11,000 people, really small, and now there's almost 11,000, if not more, I'm not sure, on this campus, let alone the city.
It does put it into perspective. The biggest part was, I had grown up in a place where there's 3 elementary schools to 1 middle school to 1 high. So you have known everybody that you're in high school with for at least 7 years, if not 10 years. And so coming to a place in which I had to completely start over again, I've had friends that you've had since the beginning of first grade, and that was just very different. Of this requires me to put myself out there, to step out of my room, to sign up for organizations, to sit down next to the person who's sitting by themselves at lunch, and that was
scary.
Yeah, it's scary at first. You know, it's like, but I knew that that's what I also wanted too. Like, I chose this. It was like self-imposed. I've only had myself to blame for this too. But that was both exciting and intimidating at first.
Yeah. And so you would just, for incoming freshmen, or I mean sophomores, etc. Just recommend joining things.
Yeah,
like trying to enforce yourself in there.
And like throw a bunch of things against the wall and see what sticks. Like you're not gonna know. Like you might have some things that you're interested in or that you did in high school, but like so much of like getting involved in things is connecting with the people there too.
So as an undergraduate admissions counselor, I feel like you're probably the best person to ask this. What are, for the people who will be or are applying to colleges right now, some of the things that colleges really look for on an application?
So it changes, like different schools have different application processes, and some schools are much more just driven on your academics and just looking at your GPA and your test score and you're admissible. And then there's schools that have a very, very, very involved application review process where like some students might, or some like counselors might only read like 75 applications a week with like extensive notes and like, you know, it's very small like reasons that are defining someone being admitted or denied, and I feel like that's the thing that gets portrayed the most is like that it's this Hunger Games of you versus the people in your school like pitted against them, and it's also like you have to be this person who's had you know, either deep traumatic life experiences or have a patent on a machine or like have started your own podcast is like the only way to get into college, and that's so much farther from the truth. Like the way that we shape this, it could be anything that really sticks out on your application. Like we're definitely going to look at your transcripts and your test scores and want to make sure that this is going to be a good place and that you're prepared for here. But like you will find things on resumes. You know, you'll find, I think the writing sample is such a great thing. We don't do interviews, so like that writing sample is a great way to kind of talk more about who you are and just have a conversation with your admission counselor too. But the other thing as well is outside of the application is just getting to know that person.
That's awesome, and I love how you keep, the theme is kind of recurring, like just getting to know people and like really connecting with people, and I think that's such a strong thing here at Loyola.
Yeah.
And so you also just mentioned how much college was transformative for you. What was the biggest, like, how come it was so transformative? Like, what happened that made it so...
I don't know that it was any, like, one lightning bolt moment.
Okay.
It was more incremental. There was these things, but learning to trust more of my instincts more. I think when, you know, Loyola's a place where there's not going to be tailgating at the football game on Saturday morning. And, like, for me, that was what I wanted.
Okay.
But it means that you have to then go out and find those opportunities for yourself and get involved in groups that you're not just going to be carried away with, like, the one thing to do on campus.
Yeah.
So then that exploration is also starting to figure out, like, who you wanted to be and defining that. So, like, I started off as a pre-med student. And my dad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse, and my sister's a doctor. And
lots of pressure.
Yeah, and like lots of pressure. They didn't even pressure me that much, but like when you don't know what you want to do, it just kind of seemed like the family business.
Yeah.
And then I did a semester of biology and chemistry and was like, all right, this is not the family business. So then it was exploring, and I really loved math in high school, and so I that seemed like a very easy choice. And then I took an ethics class here that was amazing. And this teacher was incredible, and she was using South Park to teach ethics, like making those kind of references, and she let me into a 300 level class, and it was a thing that I just pursued because I liked it.
Yeah.
For no other reason, for not like, you know, what jobs are out there, like what jobs are out there for philosophy majors. It's just like people aren't growing weird facial hair and wearing togas anymore of like, so it was just something that I pursued it for the sake of being passionate about it.
Yeah.
And that was really important to just like, as a learning about enjoying the process of exploring new interests as opposed to always being focused on this end goal too, that like you're developing as a whole person here.
Yeah.
And like that's the thing that's going to take care of you. That's the thing that's going to make you marketable, is growing as a human in all these areas. And like, you know, having those friendships through Frisbee too, those were the things that really grew me so much and shaped who I am. And then the job just fits, like the undergraduate admissions job, which, like, you know, nobody's doing that at career day in 8th grade.
Yeah, exactly.
But, like, there's thousands of jobs that are like that. So then this job was just a great fit for the type of person that I'd become and the types of things that I really enjoyed. Not necessarily, you in the classroom, but also just, on campus and what I was doing here.
You mentioned that your parents, your dad's who's a doctor and your mom who's a nurse,
Yeah.
that they got divorced your senior year of college.
Yeah.
And so how did that have an impact on you during your senior year and then afterwards?
This all kind of started earlier in sophomore year of college, though, kind of like the process of what ultimately led to all this.
Okay.
And my dad was going through recovery for AA, for Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. And that was just like kind of stressful, but then it really happened kind of suddenly. We didn't know that this was like something it was all just kind of invisible tension, and then there was this immediate separation, and then divorce. And I think being at college, it was just easier at that point to just like kind of remove yourself from the situation. Yeah. And so it was just like for a while that was it. It's easier to have my life in Chicago and just to go home on those obligatory dates like Thanksgiving or Christmas. Yeah, exactly. And then you're like, as a senior in college, you feel like your parents are having a custody battle of like having to figure out where you're going to be opening up presents on Christmas Eve and day. Like we were opening up at like an omelet shop with our dad. And it was like, what's going on here? One of the things that was so great about it is this is like, I had really tremendous friends in college, and most of the time we were just joking around. And at that point, though, we were people that would, want to have, they're incredibly intelligent people. So then they would have, conversations about, anything, politics, or, we even talk about like aesthetics and music and stuff like that. But then it turned to two of my friends' parents had gotten divorces. And one who was when they were younger, and another one who was in sophomore year of college.
Okay.
And so it was like all of a sudden, like this was a personal reflection of getting to know these people in a way that was like, as a guy, you don't always talk about this with other guys, and just like, who your family is. And it was like started off as just being like, families, man, right? And then it was just like kind of this knowing and joking, but it also became into more of this like talking and relating to them about their experience too. I started to realize that like family functionality, it always seemed like a binary, like you either have a functional family or you don't. Like your parents are married or they're divorced. And having shared that, or just like more people knowing that I was going through that, and it was just like, they would talk about parents who were still together but had hit a really rough patch, or parents that like, maybe it was even better that they would have gotten a divorce, or they wish they would have or not. And so like all of a sudden you had all these people, because you had this personal experience, that were opening up and realizing that like there's a greater spectrum of like families in general, that like everybody's got something. Nobody escapes completely unscathed. Started to like, I was like, I really do want to build. I don't like that I'm only talking to my dad like once every other month, or my mom, like avoiding those conversations. So then I just started going to therapy as per like a recommendation of one of my coworkers, whose wife is like a clinical psychologist, and was just like, people think about ER psychology and therapy as like, oh, it's going to the ER, like when something drastic happens, or like when you're
super depressed
or like suicidal, or like deeply anxious, or like OCD. And he was just built this up as like, no, it's like going to a personal trainer. There's plenty of reasons. You may be recovering for something. You maybe want to get faster in some area. There's tons of ways to just like everyday life, like problems that are like, I want to become more, confident. I want to become a better listener, more patient.
Had any piece of advice, just like human to human, what would you tell somebody?
Well, I think we kind of hit on this earlier. Everybody should see a therapist.
Yes.
And that's a thing. But two, I think that people should be more involved in the process of, figuring out who you are more and more, as opposed to like the end goals, and always feeling like there needs to be an end goal for that too. So like, be excited about how things are challenging you, or keep an open mind as to like new experiences too. If there's not a reason, if you don't have a good reason not to do something, then you should do something. There's plenty of things to do where there's a good reason. It's dangerous, it's unsafe, it's illegal. But there is tons of things like, do you want to go eat Ethiopian food? Yes, I have no reason not to. And then I just figured out that like Ethiopian food is amazing, and you can eat with your hands. Like those are the types of things that like I think open you up to new experiences and new people. And like that's how you meet people. This person, I have no reason not to talk to them. So why don't I just get to know them a little bit more?
Thank you so much, Adam, for being at the first Loyola interview for the Share
honor.
podcast.
First time caller, long time listener.